next 2 weeks, this cycle, I need all eyes up here. What I'm going to do right now is I'm going to go over just a general overview of what we're going to be working on, and then I'm going to send you on your first part of the project, which is a funny reading assignment. Okay? So we're going to get into branding, just an intro into branding. Mr. Nagels are going to get deeper into branding with you next year when you're actually going to be rebranding 4 different companies. Okay? This year, we're going to work on just rebranding 1. We're going to be rebranding NASA. What you're going to do later on in the year, all right, the next project will be you're actually going to animate this logo. Okay, we're going to get into a little bit of motion graphics and animating, all right? And then believe it or not, the last week we're together, I'm going to have you guys designing coloring book pages because I feel like that would be fun, and I really want to put together a coloring book that we can sell and kind of make some money on, all right? And I thought that'd be kind of something fun and different to do for the last week together. That's our last 5 weeks together, all right? Branding, motion graphics, coloring book, all right? So there are 11 assignment objectives within this particular project, and we're going to kind of go over them in separate pieces. This, like I said, this is just the overview. I don't want to overload you, all right? But basically, we're going to complete the funny reading assignment, which is, as my typical funny reading assignments are, pretty simple. You know, it's a step-by-step kind of how to work in logo design and icon creation. All right. You're going to research, or we're going to research together, NASA. All right. We're going to create a word bank about NASA. You're going to collect and save your visual research, and you're going to look at the different types of companies that you're going to be designing for. If you want, you can actually go through the styles, the logo styles that you've seen before, and actually pick a style if that will help you work on this particular logo. You don't have to, but I want to give it as an option. You're going to create 6 thumbnails for the logo. All right. Those got to be approved by me. Then you're going to choose one of those ideas, and you're going to come up with 3 comps of it. And what that means is I want to see 3 different ways you would create that logo. All right. Then you're going to complete the font questionnaire. That's going to help you figure out the font you're going to use to match your logo. All right. And then we're going to take those 3 comps, and you're going to create them in Illustrator. All right. Generally speaking, when you're dealing with branding, you aren't giving a client just one option, all right? I will give a client a lot more than that, all right? So, for instance, if I quickly pull this up, here's just an example of what I would give a client kind of off the top, is a few different ideas that they can see, okay? And there's my other ideas on the sides, okay? So you want to give the client some options, because what happens if you send this to them and they go, no? And you're like, okay. So we're going to set up 3 sort of comps. Your logos are going to be very similar to this. So notice how these 2 look very similar, but they have some alterations to them, all right? But again, we'll get into that a little bit. So those are the basic overall objectives of this, all right? Your learning targets are there. We'll talk about the rubric for the logos we get going. Your logo design specs are all here, okay? What you're going to hand in, all of the files that you're going to need. We're going to go over the NASA style guide, because there's extremely specific guidelines for what their logo has to have included in it. And I know Jeremiah had asked, as he's sleeping on the desk, why I won't let you guys design your own logo. You're going to do that. You're going to brand yourselves next year with Mr. Nagel. And also, I need everyone to be working on specifics, okay? If you go and just say, well, I'm doing a landscape company, I'm going to make a tree. It's not that challenging. I want this to be challenging. I don't want it to be impossible, but I want it to be challenging, okay? And NASA tends to lend itself to all kinds of really cool creative pieces, all right? If I let you guys go on your own, what ends up happening is you spend half the week figuring out who you're going to brand for, and then the other half kind of mixing and matching through things, and before you know it, the week's over, and now you've got 1 week left to do this. We've got to critique this like crazy. This is a process. It's not easy, all right? It's going to incorporate what we've learned this year. It's going to incorporate typography. It's going to incorporate icon creation, digital illustration, all of the things we've kind of mixed together. That's why it's towards the end of the year type of project. I used to make it the last project, and we would just animate other logos, but I found it much more interesting to be able to animate your own, because one of the things as you're designing it is to think about the fact that you have to animate it, okay, later on. And then we have to also learn motion graphics, all right? So what I want you to work on, and basically what's going to happen is the funny reading assignment, all right, it's got to get completed before you can start the next step, okay? You have as much time as you need on it, but I wouldn't take too long, okay? After mass break, so when you guys go to art and I meet you out there, we have mass break, we come back here, we're going to go over our presentation on logo design so that those of you that are done can move on to start your the logo design process, and then everybody else can finish up the writing assignment, okay? So in Classroom, I've given you a copy of the article, okay, and the question. So the question simply is, actively read the article, 5 tips for creating an effective logo design for your brand, apply funny reading notes, then choose 2 of the tips and explain how you would apply them. So really all you need to do in Google is just apply. You can add a comment to it and put like the plus, the minus, what, you know, that, the funny reading marks, okay, just in a comment, all right? But basically you'll see, focus on simplicity, think about where the logo will be used, update the design over time, think about a timeless design, the right process, and then branding and rebranding with logo design. You're going to pick 2 of those after you get done reading them. Jeremiah, hi. Okay? And you're going to decide as you start this process, how are you going to use those? All right? If you don't know by now, we're required in shops to do a funny reading assignment. And I try to tie them directly into your project. That way it doesn't seem like it's a waste of time. I'm sure a lot of you have gotten reading assignments where you're like, I don't know how I'm going to use this. Well, this directly applies to what you're going to be doing. All right? So that's the first step in this process, is to start that. Any questions about that piece? All right, get to it then.